Hello and welcome to Eastern Europe Review, the program mainly about Belarus, Ukraine and Russia. This is a common project of Belsat TV and TVP World. My name is Mikhail and here's what we've got for you today. Agents of the Russian influence. The Parliament of Ukraine wants to ban the Orthodox Church of the Moscow Patriarchate. The authorities have no objections to the other two Orthodox churches operating in the country.
There shouldn't be this goddamn Moscow Patriarchate in our Ukraine, that's all.
The war has provoked a big wave of repatriation to Armenia from Russia.
What does the state provide? Unfortunately, we don't have many opportunities.
Nothing to be proud of. Vladimir Putin unexpectedly cancels the press conference he typically holds every year before the Christmas break.
We made a tragic mistake. We are tragically experiencing that mistake. We must quickly change everything that we did wrong.
Dark skies are rising over the Moscow Patriarchate in Ukraine. The Ukrainian Parliamentary Committee on Humanitarian and Information Policy recommends adopting a bill which would ban the activities of the Russian Orthodox Church and any related religious organizations. Inspections of temples and monasteries are being conducted all over the country. But is it really possible to ban the Russian Orthodox Church in Ukraine?
This is the St. Nicholas Monastery of the Hus Diocese of the Ukrainian Orthodox Church. The monastery is located in the western part of the country in the Zakarpattia region. The monastery is part of the Moscow Patriarchate, one of the Orthodox Patriarchates on the territory of Ukraine. At the beginning of December, it was inspected by the Ukrainian Security Service. Nazi symbols, the teaching about Satanism, and brochures glorifying the Russians in the war against Ukraine were found. During the prayer service in the monastery, the name of the Russian Patriarch Kirill is recalled. He is prayed for, and he is the person who gave the Russian soldiers his blessing to go to war.
We found literature that came to the monastery from Moscow. It claimed that vaccination against COVID-19 can affect the brain and even change the mind of a person. At the moment, all materials have been collected and sent for examination.
When asked if it was true that Moscow's Patriarch Kirill was being prayed for at church services, the deputy assistant priest of the church, Father Matviy, answered that they received a blessing not to mention him, so they don't. He was also asked about the satanic symbols drawings.
Maybe it was drawn by a guy who lived here about 3 to 4 years ago. Then he left. But the papers remain. It survived by some miracle.
After the inspections of the Ukrainian Security Service in the St. Nicholas Monastery, it turned out that the Metropolitan of Hust and Vinogradov Mark is a citizen of the Russian Federation. In 2001, he received the Order of Friendship of Peoples of the Russian Federation. Father Matviy does not find the situation to be problematic.
We pray to God, not Russia.
Another monastery in the Zakarpattia region that was inspected by the security service is the St. Cyril and Methodius Convent. Propaganda materials, mentions of prayers for Patriarch Kirill, and lyrics that glorify the Russian land and call for the awakening of Mother Rus were found by the Ukrainian Special Forces. About 20 nuns were interrogated using the polygraph. We only managed to talk to them using a hidden camera.
We are in favor of having a single church. Yes, in an independent state like Ukraine, Russia and Belarus, just like in Muslim countries, they are independent, but they have one religion.
The nuns don't deny that they will continue to pray for Patriarch Kirill and for Mother Rus.
Why should we change something in the church? I also don't like a lot of things in the state, but we don't mess with it. They don't even understand what Russian means. The Russian world doesn't mean the Russian Federation world. It means Slavic. We are Russians, Russich. That's what we were called, like in the Tale of Bygone Years by the chronicler Nestor. I learned about it at school. The Tale of Bygone Years is written in the Church Slavonic language, in which we pray in the church.
We asked local residents how they feel about the Moscow Patriarchate after the security service inspections.
Russian bastards. I was in the occupied territory. They caused a lot of trouble in our village. In general, I am opposed to everything connected to Moscow. Let there be a Ukrainian church. Why keep them here at all? Let them go to Russia.
There shouldn't be this goddamn Moscow Patriarchate in our Ukraine. That's all.
There should be no Moscow Patriarchate in Ukraine. I don't really want my money to go to war, for Russia to buy missiles using my money.
On December the 9th, the Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine recommended a bill to ban the Moscow Patriarchate. But in reality, the state can't completely stop its activities. Religious scholars claim that this would be a violation of human rights and freedoms.
For the Moscow Patriarchate, there is an option to start a dialogue with the Orthodox Church of Ukraine, constructive, without any requirements. It would be a dialogue with the ecumenical patriarch. It's possible to involve the state, society and experts. This is a smart way out. And it would be unwise to pretend to be a martyr church, to say that there is persecution, and to be on the side of the Russian world in this way.
The expert predicts that the Moscow Patriarchate may even sue the state and spark a rebellion in order not to lose touch with Russia. In the meantime, the draft law banning their activities in Ukraine is at the stage of completion. Its final version will be presented in 2 months.
Armenia is experiencing a new wave of repatriation. The Ministry of Economy has registered 50,000 ethnic Armenians who have arrived this year from Russia. The authorities of the country say that this is the biggest number in the entire post-Soviet history. The real numbers, however, are likely to be much higher. The arrivals peaked in the last days of September, when the so-called partial mobilization was announced in Russia. Since then, the flow of repatriates has not diminished.
The office of the main department of the Passport and Visa Service of Armenia, which is responsible for helping repatriates, opens at 9 a.m. By this time, there are already several dozen people in the queue. People who want to obtain permanent residency documents gather in advance. There are more people than the employees of the department can handle in a day.
Now it has become easier, because it's possible to sign up online. But before that, people stood in a queue here at night.
Russian citizen Anastasia Fedulova's grandfather was Armenian. Today, she submitted an application and a pile of documents for repatriation to his ancestral homeland. According to the state program, she was signed up for free language courses. Because of the queue, she will start classes just at the start of next year. The Office of the Commissioner for Diaspora Affairs, controlled by the Armenian government, receives more than 60 applications for repatriation from Russia every day. It's happening in a country with 3,568,000 people, so 50,000 repatriates is around 2% of the population.
What does the state provide? Unfortunately, we don't have many opportunities. But as the Office of the Commissioner for Diaspora Affairs, we help with employment, provide access to schools and kindergarten, and help with personal matters at customs.
While waiting for the necessary documents, the new residents of Yerevan actively participate in the volunteer movement. There are regular meetups of the campaign called Russian SPUTNIKs, which aims to clean up the capital of Armenia from garbage. This is a good opportunity for immigrants and repatriates to find new friends. Aram Koseyan moved to Armenia from Saratov a year and a half ago. Now, a volunteer, he helps newcomers to assimilate.
This process is quite complicated, especially if people come from Russian-speaking countries. When I first arrived here, it was very easy to do things. You could open bank accounts for free, receive cards for free, but now it's getting harder.
Tariel Danilian is a postgraduate student of Moscow State University, majoring in political science. He is not afraid of difficulties. For a number of reasons, mobilization did not threaten him, but he decided to leave Russia forever. He believes that people who are professionally versed in politics have nothing else to do in Russia.
Political scientists are relevant when there is a democratic political regime, when there is competition between political forces, and when different political forces try to cooperate with political scientists in order to achieve power.
It is expected that by the end of this year, more than 20,000 Russians with Armenian roots will have received a long-term residence permit or citizenship. It can be observed on Yerevan highways that the newcomers come from different parts of Russia, as there are cars with license plates issued by the regions from the Far East to Kaliningrad.
Vladimir Putin cancelled his annual big press conference, which is typically held at the end of the year. It was almost the only format that gave the Russian president a chance to hear a sharp question, a claim or a complaint that would confront him with reality other than the one provided in the presidential services reports. How is the cancellation connected with the failures in the war in Ukraine? And what are the other reasons to cancel one of the main events in the political life of the country? You will find out in our next story.
On December the 16th, Russian presidential spokesman Dmitry Peskov said that Putin would not hold the traditional pre-Christmas break press conference. The message to the Federal Assembly is questionable, but the president did not change the tradition of meeting with members of the Federal Security Service. It will take place on December the 20th. There were many rumors about the big annual press conference, and it was not known until recently whether it would take place. A journalist and a political commentator, Mikhail, says that the fact that it was finally cancelled speaks volumes.
How to explain why Kherson was lost? How to explain the mobilization and heavy losses? There is no explanation. Secondly, is the level of dissatisfaction with the war growing? If Vladimir Putin is afraid of the topic of the war, then its perception in society is very different from the official picture. Even the propaganda itself is no longer as ostentatious as it used to be, not to mention the real perception of people.
Prior to this, during the entire period of Putin's presidency, a similar event was cancelled only once, in 2005. Now, indeed, Putin simply has nothing to talk about. Political scientist Ilya Grashenkov believes that the Kremlin is unable to draft a press conference scenario that is convenient for the Russian authorities.
In the current situation, even among the agreed issues, there can be sharp turns. If the press conference is completely servile, if the president speaks only about convenient topics, then the effect of it will be negative. It will become obvious that there are lots of problems, but they are tabooed.
There is another version of why the press conference was finally cancelled. According to the Moscow Times, citing sources close to the Kremlin and the government, Putin personally cancelled his press conference at the last minute since the security services could not guarantee him that there would be no new sabotage. One of the officials told the media that after the attacks of the armed forces of Ukraine on the airfields where strategic aviation was based, the Kremlin was in shock.
He is just afraid that at the moment when he is holding a press conference, something will go off somewhere, or something will be dropped. Imagine what he will look like if this happens during his so-called communication with the people. So, of course, he is now a frightened person.
The Russian independent media, We Can Explain, claims that the Kremlin released special manuals to Russian state media to justify the cancellation of the press conference. According to their two interlocutors, who got acquainted with the content of these recommendations, it was decided to tell the people that the president is focused on the special operation and its consequences, such as the restoration of the occupied territories, and all events will take place when the country reaches its goals. At the same time, it can be seen during live broadcasts on state TV channels that panic sneaks into the words of pro-Kremlin experts.
If everything is so great, why the hell are we backing down? Moreover, from a territory that is already part of the Russian Federation, so it's not all that great. I want to hear only one thing. We made a tragic mistake. We are tragically experiencing that mistake. We must quickly change everything that we did wrong.
Other experts believe that the main thing when working with broad masses is not to harm. People may not notice that there was no press conference, but if there is one, and the agenda does not match the expectations, then there will be a problem. There is no good news, and the Kremlin prefers to wait for the situation to change. Meanwhile, the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense and the General Staff are preparing for a new Russian invasion and the attempt to take over Kiev. According to Ukrainian authorities, the Russian army may try to take over the Ukrainian capital again between January and March 2023.
That's all for today. Thank you for being with us. Another edition of Eastern Europe Review will appear next Sunday. Keep watching TVP World and supporting Ukraine.